So my name is Martin Tichota. I'm a co-founder and CTO at DIVR. Previously, I used to work for Bohemia Interactive Simulations, among others, where we focused on simulation products for the defense industry. And I was doing a lot of game development on the side because I was always passionate about games.
Hey, I'm Jakub, and I'm creative director and co-founder in DIVR Labs. I have around 7 years of experience in the game industry, and originally I was working in a small mobile gaming studio called Silicon Jelly. Then we co-founded with other people at DIVR Labs. It was around 3 years ago. And so DIVR Labs is basically still quite a startup. We have a small team of people. We are around like 13 people, and we are based in Prague. We are focused entirely on virtual reality. Originally, we developed a game, which was, you can see a small preview. It's on Steam right now. And after this game, we decided to focus only on location-based virtual reality, so we are only doing that right now.
Okay, what we are going to talk today about is first a brief introduction to our Prague venue, then we'll go over the technology that's powering our experiences. We will discuss the specifics and challenges of game design and storytelling in LBVR, and we will glance over the operation aspects. So, we currently have a single venue where you can play our games. It's in downtown Prague, very busy location. We opened in May 2018 together with our first experience, Golem VR. The play area itself is 250 square meters. The venue overall is a little bigger. There's the reception and the other rooms. And since May, we served over 70,000 customers, and the whole thing paid for itself in a little bit over 1 year, which we're really happy about. And this year and starting next year, we're actually planning to expand internationally and open more venues abroad. So what does that mean to actually develop free roam VR experience? In its core, it's still a game. For that, you need a game engine. We're using Unity. We started using vanilla Unity, but then we added a couple more plugins to help us with things like sound, UI, and visual effects. It's not a regular game. It's actually a VR game, which requires some special hardware. For headsets, we're using Oculus, and for the user interaction, we're using lean motion, which is basically a depth sensor that allows you to see your hands directly in the game. People have very strong feelings about lean motion, that it's not working, yada yada. But for us, it's actually a great tool, and it helps with the immersion a lot. So we hope that lean motion will be around for a while. And our VR games are special in the sense that they are free roam, which means you can actually freely walk around on that 250 square meters area. And you are not tethered to a desktop PC. You're actually carrying the PC with you in form of a backpack. And the tracking is handled by a system called OptiTrack, which is basically a grid of cameras. We have around 80 cameras that are, tracking the users and figuring out their position and orientation in space. Going forward, we are strongly looking, we're in the R&D phase, into inside-out tracking that would replace OptiTrack altogether, because it would be way more cheaper, because the user would carry all the necessary hardware with him in the headset. For us, it would work if you need to track a lot of props, or if you need a full body tracking, then inside out probably wouldn't be good enough for you, and you would still need to stick with the so-called outside-in solution. And I broke it again. Can we get the next slide, please? Right. So this is what you need to have a LBVR experience, but if you're an indie studio like us, that's not what you have always. the usual case is you have a lot of different devices lying around the office, and you really want to take advantage of those. So that's why we were thinking how to be able to seamlessly switch between devices and platforms. And the obvious choice is SteamVR, which gives you the level of abstraction you need, but it's a little tough to extend it, and for example to introduce a new kind of device or a new tracking like we need with OptiTrack. That's why we decided to use this little neat plugin called VRTK. All it does is basically encapsulates all of the native SDKs in these little wrappers, and then if you need your custom one, you can just write it and plug it in, and that way, you know, you don't have to care about anything basically as a developer. And yeah, I would like to give these guys a shout out. I think they're doing a great job. On the right hand, you can see our actual hierarchy for the local player in Unity. Cool. So if you go through all of this and do it correctly, you'll end up with the LBVR experience. This is a screenshot of our arena. This is a little crazy, but when we were developing Golem, our first experience, the first time when we actually managed to walk through the whole experience in the arena was 3 weeks before we launched. We were a little nervous, but it worked out in the end. But one thing we found out is the whole time we were developing it at our desktop PCs, or pretty much the whole time, and just moving using the thumbstick or using teleport. And then the first time when we actually managed to walk physically in that arena, we realized that the space perception changes drastically when you can actually freely walk around. And suddenly all those rooms that, you know, we knew very well from our desktops, they looked so much bigger because we were able to walk around them. So that was really one of the biggest takeaways, is you really need to, when you're designing this, you really need to start with the physical aspect first, because then you'll avoid a lot of issues further down the road. So for our following experiences, we actually developed a few custom tools that allow us to have the physical arena, to import it directly into Unity, and then we're building the virtual levels around it. And that way we're really consistent with our physical setup, and you know, it helps us to think really in the physical dimensions of the space rather than the virtual ones, which can cause troubles. All right, so we have this beautiful playground. What can we do with it, Jakub?
Okay, cool. So yeah, as Martin said, we have all this awesome technology, and we have this playground, and we need to fill it with content, basically what we call experience, or you can call it game. So my role in the team is mostly focused on creative side of the thing, and but with overlaps to game design. And that is, in VR, there is like many challenges when you need to solve a content for Arena. So I will try to go through all the challenges we were facing along the way. I divide the content into these 3 main pillars. It's theme, story, and game design. And I will try to talk about as much as possible in this little time. So I will start with theme, because these are 3 experiences we developed. And the theme is the first thing you will face while developing the content for VR, and for doesn't matter if it's game or it's our arena, but I will talk mostly I will talk about will be in context with what we do. The product is quite specific because we have the physical arena, and our customer is not a gamer, usually not a technical person. So, and their contact with VR is usually it's their first contact with VR. They said they did VR. Usually they didn't, or they did the bad one in the beginning, so their experience may be even bad. So our approach to what we do is highly specific from, for example, development for PC games. So the theme is really important. I'll try quickly break it. So what you need to know when you are facing when you are solving the theme for your experience. So you need to, we usually ask these questions. Is it recognizable worldwide? Is the premise clear to understand? Will it be fun for this range of age? Can you explain it using one static image? Can you explain it by using key art, or does it look good on key art? And do you have capacity to produce it? So I'll go through the examples. This is the first game we developed. It's Golem VR. It's a quite well-known Czech legend. And with this experience, we were focused on families, children, and tourists. So we have arena in the very center of Prague in a famous toy store. So it was quite good theme for such a space and for such focus group. But it's not recognizable in other places in the world. So when we would open, and we want to scale our product, we want to expand abroad, we want more locations, and so we also need product which will be recognizable worldwide. So this, for example, has this mistake, which that other people in other countries wouldn't probably recognize the content, and therefore it would be for them hard to understand what they are buying and what the experience will be about. This is second experience we developed. It's called ARACHNOid VR. It's a horror theme. It's for more advanced players. We focus it on players that they already played Golem VR and they want something more. It's older audience. It's more cooperative. It's a little bit intense experience. So this is hard to. It's not product for families and or for children. So, and that's the problem. Even because there's the experience is basically about huge spiders in a caves, and you're exploring these dark caves. And so it's really fun. We get super good feedback from our players, but we can't sell it to children, and not everybody likes spiders. So the audience is, again, not as wide as we would like to. Even everybody knows spiders, so we don't need to explain to in other countries what the experience will be about. But we will miss some customers, and we don't want that. So it served to our purpose, but it's not the best example of scalability. So it brings us to our last experience, and probably already from this image you can tell what it will be about, and you can somehow get the image what the experience will be about. So that's what we were trying to solve. So our third experience, which will be probably launching this year, will be about dinosaurs. Everybody knows them, everybody loves them. It basically solves all the problems I was talking about in the beginning. So this was just brief summary of what we are dealing with when we are talking about content. Next thing you need to solve is game design. It's quite wide theme, but I will try to again break it into some points. These are sketches from the first experience, Golem VR. It basically shows that every room you have in experience needs to bear some mood, or you have to have idea what you want to communicate to the player. You have to break it into separate rooms, and then you need to solve all these things I'll be talking about. So these are the sketches from our last experience, the dinosaurs, and you can see that every room has a separate message, and all of these needs to bear player through the story also, which I will be talking about later. So this is really important rule we realize, and it's really important that the player knows about his situations at all the time. So that means that you as a player shouldn't be lost in any moment. So you should know where you are and how you get there and what is your goal. All these three things you should know at all time, because otherwise player will be feeling lost, and you will break the immersity, and you will spoil his experience. So this is a very important rule, and I'll just go through these. So these three is how we understand the general experience. There's one more. We usually break it in these three main parts, which is onboarding, then the player is challenged, and the grand final. So that means when the player enters the experience, he usually needs some time to get familiar with the world. You shouldn't like get him into this world and already challenge him, because he don't know the boundaries, he don't know how the world works. So you should give him some time to get familiar. Then he wants to be challenged. He actually wants to try the boundaries of the world, and you should prepare him for it. And then you have the final. So I have two examples of what we did. The first is puzzle from Golem. We call it chicken puzzle. Then the bad example is a puzzle from Arachnoid. We call it lever puzzle. The problem was, or the good thing about the chicken puzzle is that it's really simple. You basically chase the chickens back to the chicken hen, and you just chase them back, because they escape from it, and you just run around the place and try to chase them back. So you don't need explanation, because you already as a player know what to do, because the chickens escape, so you just try to get them back. You from real life, you know what happened and how to solve it, so you don't need no additional information. So this is example of good puzzle. On the other hand, with the lever puzzle, is super complicated. You just have to realize what's going on, how does it work, what the lever does. Actually the goal was to trace the pipes, find out which is good, which are broken, and then use only the good one, and then use the lever. And in the beginning, you have to turn on the generator, blah, blah, blah. It was super complicated. Basically, the player see this, and it's for him, it's really frustrating, and it was in the beginning of the game, so he refused to solve it, and so we had to really change the whole concept of the puzzle. So these two puzzles were basically at the same time on the same place, different games, and we get really different output from players. They really enjoy the chicken puzzle, and they hate the lever puzzle. So that was just really quick went through the game design, which is important, but we just don't want a pack of interactions, every room, some kind of interactions, without any consistent storyline, because the story can help you to it can help you bring more emotions, and it can help player to understand what's going on. So the story is really important, but the story is really hard to tell in VR. There are the reasons why. Because you don't have control over player's camera. That's really a problem, because you can't just grab his point of view and just turn it somewhere, because it's just impossible. You will create motion sickness, the player would instantly took off the headset. You can use cutscenes, because the player is in 3D space, so he is looking at what he wants, and you can't control it. It's really hard and maintain player's attention, because he just is overwhelmed by the new world, and he wants to look on whatever he wants. So it's really hard to just get his attention even for a while. And people actually want to interact in this world. They want to have fun, not listen some story. So I'll just go quickly through through some points. How we solved it. So there are a few things you can do. Dialogues should be direct to player, or about him, what he's doing. It shouldn't be about two AIs talking to each other or NPCs, because then player doesn't care what they are talking about. It should be just to him, then he may pay attention, or about his journey, then maybe he will pay attention. Make sure there are no distractions. If you fill the room of some animations, he will be like distracted, because everywhere something is happening. So it should be simple room, just for purpose of communicating some important thing. Make it simple and clear. Don't use huge dialogues, long dialogues with a complicated storyline. And there are many other techniques which you can use. Unfortunately, we don't have time to it. I'll just quickly show you. This is onboarding video in the beginning of the Golem VR. The room is clear. It's concrete, simple room. We turn off the lights and we show only this, so he's not distracted by anything else. The video looks kind of cool, so he is focused, the player is focused only on that, and it's for him to understand what he will experience in the game. So he's kind of interested of what will be going on. So this is one example of how we solve this problem.
Thank you, Jakub. So we have a world full of puzzles and story. Sometimes the player is not interested really in solving those puzzles, and we really don't want to create just an escape room in VR. We want to give the player an illusion of an actual world that responds to his actions, and we do that by introducing a lot of these small gimmicks and interactions. We found out that it's best to keep them really physical, so that it feels natural for the player to do them. There's one example where he can play with the chains. We started with this in Golem. In Arachnoid, we actually did a whole level, just like, the whole level based on these physical interactions. This is another example that's in Dinosaurs, where we want to give the player a feeling of going through a really thick jungle full of vegetation, and that vegetation needs to react to players in the natural way, so we solve it again with very simple physics. This is probably the most cool looking thing we have in Dinosaurs. We've written a completely custom shader for the water, and it includes the physics, so you can see the little waves. We are also calculating buoyancy force for the objects floating on the water, and another thing is we implemented an underwater view as well. That's in the beginning of the loop, which basically divides the whole level into two. So in one physical space we have two different environments, and the player can do different stuff in each of those, and the transition between them is very natural, and it also looks cool, I think. And we want to be able to transport the player around the world, because if he would just walk, his action radius would be very limited. We are already using elevators, and they were great. It's really hard to like deceive the human's brain, so people actually think they're going up and down on an elevator, but they're just standing still, and it's just the game that's moving them really. But we wanted to expand on that, so in Dinosaurs we will have these gliders that will actually fly you around the world, and they will have vibrations in the floor and a fan blowing into your face that's synchronized with the game, and there the illusion is almost perfect, so you can actually feel like you're flying on a glider or on a plane, and it really makes the world so much bigger, and you can show way more stuff this way. All right, last point, our operations. First of all, we didn't want to do it at all because we're developers, right? We don't know anything about operating a VR experience, but in the end, it gave us so much first-hand feedback that it was just totally worth it, and we can directly talk to the customers, get their feedback immediately, and thanks to it, we can really quickly iterate and make our experiences better. What we found out, and it was already mentioned actually prior to this talk, it's really hard to convince people that they want to do VR and that it's going to be a better VR than they experienced before, that it's not going to be some clunky roller coaster on a chair. Again, a way around this is we have a small version of our experience in Oculus Quest that we will put on people's heads, and they can walk around and realize, oh, okay, so I'll be able to walk and I won't feel this afterwards, so this helps a lot. We have a linear walkthrough, and actually our venue is separated by walls, so we can have at one time 8 groups playing different game sessions, so they don't see each other, and thanks to the walls they don't bump into each other. Because of that, we can do 48 people per hour, which is actually quite a decent throughput for this kind of thing. We can't compete with the roller coaster with their 1,200 people, but still it's pretty good. And we can let every 5 minutes we can let a new group in, so that's why we got those really good numbers I was mentioning in the beginning. In terms of the staffing, we have actually 5 people per shift. To our on the reception trying to buy in the customers. We have 2 loaders and unloaders, you know, handling the onboarding, and then we have 1 IT guy overseeing the whole thing, and they're in 2 shifts. And thing we learned the hard way is you really need to look actively for group events that will boost your revenue and that will fill in the off-peak spots. All right, some technological background. This is basically the pipeline we're using for all of our products, and that allows us really to go into the franchise business much more easier because everything is automated and there are no little scripts in the background. All right, cool. I had to skim through this a little bit, but if there are any questions, now is the time.
Hi. One question: how do you force the people to continue in the experience? Because if they like playing with the interactable objects, like for a minute or something like that.
So we have some mechanics directly in the game that will tell them, all right, you're spending too much time here, and usually what works best is to just open the next room, and because they're curious, they'll go there on their own. But sometimes they are scared, they don't want to go into the next room, so it's up to the staff basically to force them in.
Yeah.
But that's pretty rare actually.
But yeah, that's rare. But it's an interesting question because in the very beginning we designed a mechanic how to force them to the next room. But what we quickly realized that while you open a new room for them, they immediately continue because they're curious what will be the next adventure. So they usually don't hang out in one place too long. So they're by themselves. They are going further usually in the most of the time.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
There's one more question.
Oh, sorry. Grab it. No.
Are there any audio issues between the groups when they walk along the walls and maybe hear each other?
Yes, sound is a huge problem. We are fighting with that. Like there's, especially when you have the full arena, you know, we are looking into solutions like making it soundproof and things like that, and really having quality microphones and quality headphones. Sorry, quality headphones and quality microphones helps a lot.
Second
Good.
time lucky.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for coming.